Lisa Fabrega is a leadership coach who helps ambitious people expand their capacity to handle more growth, wealth, and success. For more than 10 years, she has helped entrepreneurs, corporate executives, Academy Award nominees, and Nobel Prize organization candidates break through boundaries that have been holding them back from their next level. Her signature approach enables clients to reach their highest levels of success and impact. She has addressed thousands of people both on stage as a keynote speaker, as well as appearing on podcasts and being featured on well-known media outlets such as CNN, Yahoo News, the Huffington Post, and Forbes. We had an amazing conversation. You're going to be taking a lot of notes on this one, so make sure you have your pen and paper handy. And without further ado, let's dive into the episode. All right, Lisa, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today and excited for you to be a part of the Female on Fire series. So welcome, and thank you for being a part of the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and I'm even more excited about what we're about to dive into today, because I was actually just telling Lisa before we hit the record button, this has been a theme that's been coming up with a lot of my clients. And I know that what happens at the micro is also probably happening at the macro. So I'm really excited to dive into this personally as well, because I'm always about learning how to expand. That is a never-ending game. It's a life journey. And so we're really going to be going in on expansion, and particularly how you can expand your capacity to handle more growth, wealth, and success. So, Lisa, what like, were you at a point in your life, I'm kind of curious personally, where you were feeling like overwhelm and like that constriction, and then you sort of developed, okay, I would love to hear about that. Could you share a little on that?
Absolutely. So I started my business, officially in 2010, but unofficially in 2008. But when I started, I was a health coach, and I quickly realized that my clients just were not talking to me about food ever. They were very busy, successful, ambitious women, very growth oriented, always interested in going to the next level of their achievements. And I started to realize, like, oh, I don't think health coaching is what I'm supposed to be doing here. And so my business began to grow, and I started turning more to away from food and more towards leadership coaching with these women. And my business grew very fast. I really hustled very hard in the first 2 years of my business, and our business just kept doubling every year. And by the time we got to 2014, we were so slammed. I mean, I remember it just felt like I had wait lists for my wait lists. I didn't have enough space to serve everybody that was trying to come in. We were getting so many emails every day with people who wanted to work with us. I was not very well supported. I didn't have the right team. It just felt like a lot. And I remember getting to the end of 2014 and just feeling, I noticed that I started to feel a little bit resentful of my business. And even I would get that feel like, now when I get on the phone with my clients, I'm like, yes, client day. But I started to feel like, ugh, client day, and I thought something's wrong. I shouldn't be feeling this way.
Yeah, something's off.
Yeah. And so I started to realize that, I was overwhelmed, I was burned out, and then I was thinking, if I'm already here at this stage of growth in my business, how can I grow more if I'm already full? If I'm already starting to feel resentful, I'm already starting to feel burned out. So I made the mistake, which is what a lot of people do. And that's why I do what I do today. We're very smart, and we're smart women, and we are solution oriented. So when we have a problem, we might wallow in it for a couple of days, but then we get into action, and we're like looking for the strategies that we need to solve the problem. And that's what I did. And because I wasn't asking myself a very important question, which is, what kind of capacity do I need to get to where I want to go, right? I went and sought a strategy, and the strategy was, I'm going to build a funnel so that I can collect all these people that want to work with me and put them in a scalable program. And then, all my problems will be solved. And so I did that. And that was in 2015. And we spent all of 2015 trying to make this thing work. and it tanked. And we ended up that year $100,000 in debt and in the business. And I remember not sleeping
Mm.
that whole year because it was so stressful. And at the end of the year, I finally pulled the plug on the whole thing and was like, this is not working. Like, we can't just keep racking up the debt here. And I had some really like sitting with myself weeks. And I thought, how did this happen? Where did I go wrong? And it's what we call in in Florida they call it a come to Jesus moment. So I had a come to Jesus moment, and I
Yeah.
realized that I had been so obsessed with the strategies solving my problem and getting and trying to find, so if that wasn't working, let me try this strategy or that strategy or this business expert must know. And I forgot to ask myself the most important question, which is, what was my internal capacity to be able to hold, handle, and receive the next level that I wanted? And I realized that because I didn't ask myself that question, I wasn't in my right mind when I was making these strategic decisions because I was already burned out.
Mm.
Instead of asking myself, like, do I have the team I need? Do I have the boundaries I need? Do I have the emotional capacity to handle what I want? Do I have the money beliefs I need to make more money now? All of this, I didn't ask myself those questions, and I thought it could all be solved with a strategy. So it led me to make bad decisions as the leader of my business because I wasn't including the question about my capacity in those decisions. And so that is where, and then as I asked myself those questions, I started to realize those are the questions that I ask my clients all the time, who were all ascending to the next level, getting promoted in their corporate jobs, getting to seven figures in their businesses, all that. And I was like, oh, I have to ask myself the very same questions that I've been asking my clients. And so that is kind of where the term capacity was born. I realized I've been doing this with all these people all these years, and now I have to do it on
Mhm.
myself. And it's about
Mhm.
capacity. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that you just shared that because that's something I really try to hone in on a lot is sometimes we can be obsessed with the how, like the strategy, like what's the thing I have to do? Like what's the strategy? What's the how? We become so obsessed
Yes.
with like the mechanism, right? The
Yes.
mechanism. And really it's so I have this formula that I literally live by. It's a very simple formula and it goes be, do, have.
Yes.
Okay. And so many times we were like, we have it backwards. Either we think we need to do something in order to have something to be something, or we think we need to have something in order to do something to be something, right? So having
Yeah.
that backwards and like taking that step back and looking inward and being like, okay, where am I at? And I love that question that you asked. And I hope that everybody wrote that down. What is the capacity that I get to have, that I need to get to where I want to go? I think that's such a powerful question. And I love that and I just want to say thank you for sharing that part of your journey too, because it's like, this is why I'm so passionate about, pain to power and pain to purpose, because you went through that, right? And you dealt with some tough stuff. And from that was birthed a powerful realization, as you said, come to Jesus moment, like this awakening that now you're able to share with so many women all over to
Yeah.
support them and not, making that same mistake. So I
Exactly.
just think it's so powerful what you just shared. And I'm really excited to dive deeper into it. Okay. So what did you find like from how, like when you go into the steps that you took in that expansion, right? Because something else that I say a lot is it's not about putting more on your plate
Mm-hmm.
and like having this plate that's literally filled and things are falling off of it. It's about expanding your plate, right?
Yes. Exactly.
Expanding your plate, so that expansion, so that you can, yes, handle all of those things while still having spaciousness
Yeah.
without experiencing overwhelm. That is so possible. If you're listening right now, I'm telling you, it is so possible for you. It is 100% possible for you. And it has a lot to do, like what Lisa said briefly, around your belief system too. So have you been believing that that's even possible for you? Because if you haven't been believing it, then hello, it could be like, if you say so, like it could be that's why it's not showing up for you. So Lisa, could you dive into that a little more of those, really those steps into that expansion?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I started to notice as I was sitting with myself, because one of the things that was really important in that moment is that I was always used to filling the gaps in with solutions and strategies, right? And then I got to the point where nothing was working. I was out of solutions and strategies, and that was good because it forced me to sit down and really like just be in a space of emptiness for a while and really hear my thoughts and really hear what my intuition was telling me.
Yeah.
And as I started to reflect on what I'd done, I realized that I picked a product that didn't really represent the true genius of what I do to sell in this funnel, for example. And it made me think about, well, what do I do with my clients? And as I started to apply the process that I was doing with my clients to myself, I started to realize that there's 6 areas that I have noticed working, because I have worked with over 74,000 people by now, and from all countries all over the world, all different levels of business, boards of $100 million companies to beginners. And what I realized is that there's these 6 areas that those of us who are ambitious, next level oriented, always want to be growing, that we tend to struggle with when we get to these sticky, what I like to call like capacity deficit points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can go through them because I had to do this assessment of myself to question, okay, am I actually ready? Because one of the questions that I ask often when I'm doing talks for other people's groups or even speaking to my own clients is, it's okay, if the ideal opportunity were to land in your lap right now, like the thing that would just make your entire year if you got it, if that landed in your lap right now, would you actually truly be able to say yes to it without being like, yes, but first I have to go do this, or yeah, but let
Mm.
me just tweak this? No, I mean like right now, ready to say yes to it, and not only say yes to it, but pull it off without a hitch. Do you have that in place? And when I ask this question of most people, and when I ask the question of myself, the answer is no. But we somehow think that if I just pay for this strategy, it's somehow going to make it happen. And it's like, no, there's all these areas we've got to look at. So the first one is money. I call money capacity. So this, you talked about beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
What are your beliefs about money, right? Maybe you can see yourself getting up to a certain point, right? Maybe you're saying, I want $100 million company. But can you actually see yourself as $100 million company CEO? Do you, like deep down inside, does that feel believable to you? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a ceiling you're not aware of? Or do you have some funky habits with money where you overspend on things that don't matter whenever you get to a certain point because you get nervous about having that much money in your bank account, spend
Yes.
down, right?
Yes.
Or you overly save and then you don't invest the money wisely in things that could triple the money, right? Or put it back into your business or whatever. And what's amazing about this is I was making a lot of money back. I mean, I make way more now, but back then for me, what I was making was a lot of money. And and yeah, I still, a lot of people will say, well, I'm making, 7 figures, so I don't have money capacity issues. And I'm like, that's not true. It doesn't matter how much money you're making. I have seen people who are making 8 figures make very limited, stingy choices with money and not invest it wisely and not use it in their business properly. And they're like employees, or they're paying their employees full time and the employees aren't even working full time, and just little inefficiencies like that. So you might be able to handle it with the level you're at now, but let's say you expand that container and now you're like going for your next, 2 million, let's say. Well, those issues are going to triple. They're going to expand, they're going to magnify, and now it's going to create an instability. So then we have visibility. So that's allowing yourself to be fully seen in your work and your life,
That's the
people in your
second
life.
area.
Visibility. Yeah, that's the
That's the
second
second
one.
area. I wanted to add one thing that you
Yeah,
said,
go
and
ahead.
kind of highlight it. Is that, listen, ladies, if you were comfortable with making that amount of money that you want to make, you would be making it right now.
Exactly.
So I just want to underline that, because what Lisa said is really important, is identifying where you experience discomfort. Because that discomfort is revealing to you a limit that you've set somewhere in your system. You've set a limit, and that feeling of discomfort, and you get to just play around with that, like really play around with identifying where is my set point there? Like, where have I limited myself and capped myself? So just knowing, if you were comfortable with making that, you would be making that right now in this moment. Okay. So, and again, there's nothing like wrong, bad about that. It's like, this is all part of the process. Is we've got to be willing to look at these things. We've got to be willing to shed light on these things so we can literally transform it. So I just wanted to highlight that, because I thought that was really, really important. So yes, let's go into visibility. I'm excited to learn more about this one.
I love that you said that though, because that's something I tell my clients a lot too, is I know this might be triggering. It might feel overwhelming to really face this and look at it in the mirror.
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes, the things that you see, you almost don't want to look at, but that's exactly what you said. That's how we have to start. We have
Yeah.
to look at the hard things.
Yep.
Yeah, so then we have visibility, and visibility is allowing yourself to be fully seen in your work and your life. The way I see this come up for a lot of my clients, and the way it was coming up for me, is there are pieces of you that you're hiding from your work, from your clients, from your community. And a lot of times we hide them because we think we're going to be judged, or we're going to lose half our clients if they know this about us, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because you're hiding it, think about the amount of energy it takes you on a daily basis to hide this very natural part of you, right? So, for example, if you're a person that just likes to cuss a lot and you're never cussing at all in your business, what's going to happen is you're going to attract people who don't like cussing, for example, and then you're going to get in a session and
Yeah.
a word's going to fly and they're
Yeah.
going to be so offended, right?
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
not even attracting like the right
Yeah.
clients because you're not fully being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And also, a lot of people come to me and tell me they're burned out and they think it's their job or whatever. And I'm like, hold on. And sometimes it's the amount of energy it takes for you to hold back parts of you
Totally.
drains
Yes.
you.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
had a client who was like a really talented shaman, actually, and had these really powerful intuitive gifts. And she had a business that was all about business coaching. And she was terrified to even talk about this whole other side of her because she thought her clients would think she was like losing it and leave.
Oh, wow.
But when we actually worked on helping her feel safe to show that part of her, she had this event that she would really like pull teeth for to fill every year. There was, she'd get maybe like 85 people at this event. The year that she finally started to integrate all of herself into her branding and into her business, she sold
Mm-hmm.
265 tickets.
Wow.
So that thing we're hiding is very often the thing that's actually the most lucrative thing for our
Yes.
businesses, and not just our businesses, but our relationships, being in
Yes.
relations where we feel fully seen and accepted and loved for who we are. All of those things can be draining to your capacity as well if you're not letting yourself be seen.
Preach, sister. I love it. Yes. So true. I talk about this all the time. It's one of my biggest, like, I'm so passionate about this. So I love it. I call it owning your 360 self, like every facet, every dimension, every part, every piece, every angle of you. And I love also how you said that yes, it's exhausting. It's tiresome to try to be something you're not. So a lot of times whenever I have my clients that are feeling exhausted, one of the things I ask is, where are you hiding? Like, where are you not showing up as who you are? Like, where are you sacrificing yourself? Because that is truly an indicator of exhaustion, is that you're not being true to yourself in some way. So I talk about magnetism a lot. And magnetism, for me, this is how I think of magnetism. I'm all about it. I wrote a book on magnetic confidence. And what it means to me is, think of a magnet, right? It attracts, but what else does it do? It also repels. And a lot of people, a lot of women are not okay with that second piece. They're
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, attraction. Yeah, I want to attract the clients. But know that the more you truly embrace your 360 self, your full visibility of who you are, you're going to repel some people, and that's okay. Like you're going to,
Good.
for example, like if you cuss, like that was a really great example. If you cuss, there's going to be some people that you're going to probably piss off, and they're not going to want to, and that's okay. That's okay. We live in such an abundant universe of 8.5 billion people. Like there is no shortage of people who resonate and who are a divine exact match for working with you. So I love what you said about that, even being the thing that has you stand out, that has you be that much more magnetic, right? When you're owning those parts. So I love that you just said it. And I love that you're calling it visibility, and the way that you said it too is different than I normally do. So I really hope that it sunk in for y'all listening, because that's such an important piece. Okay.
Absolutely.
What's number 3? Give it to me.
Number 3 is purpose capacity.
Mm.
And that's basically that who you are on the inside is matching who you are on the outside. You know, a lot of people come to me. A wonderful example of this is I had a client who literally had been nominated for an Oscar, had been on Oprah's couch, huge following, and she'd felt the calling to change her branding and her business. And she hired all these like top level like branding experts and all these strategists to help her with this. And this is wild. So she was all about like body positivity and like women's empowerment. And she hired this male coach that told her that she needed to start her new business under the branding of like weight loss, which is the complete opposite of what she was about.
Yeah.
But she allowed him to kind of steamroll her. And he
Mm.
was like, this is a great niche. You're going to make a lot of money. She's like, okay. So she goes and does this for 2 years. And by the time she found me and comes to talk to me about working together, she's like, I feel like I don't even know who I am anymore. And I feel depressed. And I feel
Mm.
like I just want to shut everything down and never do this again. So I
Mm.
was like, before you do that. And we started to look at her purpose capacity, like what's going on, like what is there something you feel led to that you're not allowing yourself to do. And we found that she really wanted to work with women in science and tech because she knew all of these like super powerful executive women and these like science and tech startups, and they were always coming to her for advice. And she wanted to help them tap into their creative side. Now, the reason she wasn't allowing herself to own that and just make that her business is that when she was little, her mother was a very talented artist. And we discovered this belief, and I remember even she was blown away. She had no idea it was there, that she was not allowed to outshine her mother. Her mother was passed away at that point. And
Mm.
so she wasn't allowing herself to allow her business to reflect her true purpose because she had this old little girl thing about not disrespecting your mom by outshining her.
Mm.
And we cleared that, we worked on it, and then she started infusing this into her business. We completely changed everything. And she now has a very successful business. She regularly books, $25,000 clients to work with her one-on-one. She just wrote a third book. I mean, she's doing great. And that's an example where she thought that her exhaustion and feeling like she didn't know who she was anymore was like some crisis that she was having. And I'm
Mm.
like, no, it has nothing to do with any of that. You don't need all this stuff you think you need. You just need to allow what your purpose actually is to come forth. Because again,
Yeah.
same thing. The energy it takes to go against your
Mm-hmm.
purpose is
Mm-hmm.
very draining.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I love that. And it's so interesting, right? Like this is why it's so important to do the deep inner work, because that moment was so buried probably under in her subconscious, right? It was so buried. And to be working like, so this is why I'm such a stand for everyone having a coach, everyone being, having mentorship and support, because they're there to guide you and to support you to see those blind spots, right? Those parts that maybe if you weren't asked those questions in that way, you would have never seen that. And that block, it's been blocking you from really truly activating your gift, your purpose. So I love that. And it's so interesting too, and this is kind of like tying back into the visibility piece as well, is the very thing that we're really scared that other people will judge us for is typically the thing well, is always actually the thing that we actually judge ourselves for. Right? It's coming from something that you experienced along your journey, likely in your childhood.
Yeah.
And so there's this judgment there of self, of you judging yourself. And so you're projecting that out into the world saying that, okay, well, I'm afraid everybody's going to judge me like this.
Yes.
Well, it's coming from a space of self-judgment, which I'll say is very empowering, because it's even more so realizing how powerful you are and how much you are source. And it's not your power is not reliant on what other people think of you. It's actually reliant on what you think of you.
Yes.
So yeah, so powerful. And I love how it just ties so beautifully. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the fourth one?
The fourth one is called embodiment capacity. And embodiment
Mm,
capacity is, it's the thing, what cracks me up about embodiment capacity is nobody ever wants to admit that they have an embodiment capacity issue. And yet it's the one that most people need the most,
mm-hmm.
right? They need to expand their embodiment capacity. So embodiment capacity is basically your ability to navigate any challenge without getting thrown off your internal grounding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I say navigating challenges with ease. So it's a combination of your emotional, your mental, your physical capacity as a leader. So great example, if you're launching a new project and things aren't going the way you want them to go, are you having like emotional meltdowns and yelling at your team, which I've had clients that were doing that. Or I had a client that was on such an emotional roller coaster during this massive launch where they had like 10,000 people sign up for her webinar and the software crashed and she got 500 angry emails from people, and she was like leaving me these voice messages like in such emotional distress, crying. And then she told me that by the end of that week, the head of her team sent her a voice message and said, "Hey, like we get that this is stressful, but if you keep doing this, we're all going to quit. Like we can't deal with this."
Mm.
And I was like, that's a great example of having an embodiment capacity deficit, that or feeling like you can't trust yourself to handle the next level. You're afraid that you won't be able to handle it, or it's going to feel too overwhelming, or someone's going to leave a nasty
Mm.
comment online about you, and you're afraid it's going to impact you and like take
Yes.
you out.
Mm-hmm.
So having that internal emotional resilience to navigate. Or when the pandemic broke out, I mean, I can't tell you how many business owners that I saw like, well, you got to work on your embodiment capacity, because they were just flipping out, making really dumb decisions. you know um what was it? There's this test maker that makes like COVID tests. And I was like, that's a perfect embodiment capacity deficit example. They assumed that the wave was over and they trashed all of their tests. And then the Delta wave came, and now they have all these people like, we need tests, and they have to like
Yeah.
start from scratch, and they threw like millions of dollars of
Oh,
tests away.
wow.
So I
Wow.
was seeing people make decisions because they were emotional, they weren't staying grounded, they weren't staying calm and
Mm-hmm.
trusting in their own wisdom, which had gotten them to where they are when the pandemic broke out. And that's a perfect example of having embodiment capacity issues. And those can drain us tremendously, because to be going like this on an emotional roller coaster, or to be, like feel like not speaking up for 2 weeks after someone criticizes you publicly or whatever, you can't afford to be thrown off that often by the little challenges that come your way. And if you can't handle them now, how do you think you're going to handle them when you go to the next level, that whatever that looks like for you?
New levels, new devils.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. How
Yeah.
do you expand your embodiment capacity?
I have a lot of exercises that I teach people. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a question that's hard for me to answer. But what I would say, the first thing you need to do, and I always think it's the best place to start, is to do a serious assessment of yourself. And I had a coach once say to me, she said, look at your last 15 emails to me and tell me what you notice. And it was the most amazing exercise, because I got to see a pattern that I was doing in the last 15 emails. So I'd say, look at the last 15 times you woke up in the morning. How were you feeling? Start
Mm-hmm.
jotting it down. There's even apps you can download where you can put your mood in every day, and then go back and look and see how is my mood? How is my emotional state every
Mm-hmm.
day? If
Mm-hmm.
it's low every day, something's going on, and you've got to either, maybe you need therapy, because sometimes you don't need capacity work. Sometimes you need to go to therapy, right? I'm not a therapist. Sometimes you need to learn how to. I had a client actually yesterday who told me that she had a huge aha moment because she is in a corporate career and trying to start a consulting side of her career. And she was like, don't understand why, but I feel like I'm not making enough progress. And when we looked at what was going on, she realized that whenever she has an emotion, she like indulges in it for way too long. And then she's like wallowing in this intense emotion for like 3 days and getting nothing done the
Mm-hmm.
entire time. And she had this whole moment like, you know what? I actually have to set a boundary with myself when that happens. And she literally has this thing now where she's like, I will allow myself to wallow in this one day, and I am not allowed tomorrow. And she literally pushes herself. She pushed herself to get up and do the thing the next day because her one day was up.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
a bunch of different examples.
Love that. Yeah. I was just curious because I have like some of my own, embodiment practices that I take my clients through, but I was curious, like, what one of yours was. But yeah, and I love that because one of my girlfriends has a similar it's a promise.
Mm-hmm.
So she has a promise and consequence,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm really loving this. And so this whole concept of promise and consequence, which is actually a Handel method. And she has a promise to not worry. Her thing is worrying for more than, I think it's 1 minute. So she has like 60 seconds. Like, and if she worries longer than that, she's got to throw money out the window. But I love it. I'm like, it's so good. It's so good, to have like a consequence in there, to keep you your word and keep you accountable. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah. Um,
Beautiful. So what's the fifth one?
yeah, the fifth one is one that no one ever likes, but it's so necessary. It's structural capacity. So structural
Oh, I
capacity is,
like this one already.
I like it,
I
but
like it.
some people are like, I don't want to do that. I want to be
Yeah.
free. And I'm like,
Yep.
no, you can't be that free. Like if
Well,
you don't,
that's the structure
you can't
freedom
be free.
paradox though.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I try to explain to them. Structural capacity are the foundations in your life and in your business that are holding you up to go to your next level. So that can look like the team that you have in your business. So maybe the team you have right now works, or the team you work with in your corporate job or whatever, right? Maybe that works right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But is that the team that you need for, the next
Like you
level?
said, if you got that big project or that big, would your team currently that you have now standing be able to handle it? Yeah. Would your systems right now, as they're set up, be able to handle it? Yes. Love it.
100%. Yeah, like the systems in your business, even the way you do your scheduling, like does you
Yes.
start planning for, the next big leap in revenue, what does your schedule have to look like right now so that there's space for that to happen, right? And then it's
Yes.
not just your like business or career systems, it's also your life stuff.
Hmm.
So maybe you need to tell your kids that from now on they're folding their own damn laundry. Or maybe you
Or
need
you
to
hire someone to come do it for you.
right. Hire someone to come help you clean your
Yeah.
house. I hired a cook last year. It saved me so, I'm a great cook, but I'm so
Yep.
busy and I want to keep eating healthy and
Yep.
taking care of myself. I hired someone to come to cook for me, even though it felt frivolous. It's not frivolous. It sustained me the whole freaking year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then like the ways we leak energy in this area is what we were talking about at the beginning, that we think it's going to restrict us and we just want to be free. And actually, it gives you more freedom, because if you wake up in the morning and you don't know what you're doing, what are you most likely to do? Get overwhelmed and go watch Netflix all day. avoid because you're so overwhelmed. But if you have clear systems and you have a very like a calendar that works for you. I have
Yeah.
ADD, so I have to have my calendar a very specific way in order
Mm-hmm.
for to work with the strengths and the weaknesses of my ADD. And my
Yeah.
whole team knows it too. So my whole team is aware that I need those structures,
Yes.
and that I can only communicate in these ways, and they can't expect me to get a response if they try to email me. Like they know all this. But the
Mm-hmm.
ways we leak energy is that we don't we what's a great example? I had this cleaning lady that would come to my house and she would also do my laundry on top of it. And for some reason, I told her, just leave the clothes folded on my bed and I'll put them away. Because I assumed that she wouldn't know where things go, so I'll just figure it out. But guess what? The clothes would just sit there the whole week and they would not get put into the dresser.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I doing that? But we
Yeah.
do these things, right? We're like, oh,
Yes.
I'll do it, you know?
Well,
It's
part
like,
of that is
oh,
letting go of control.
yeah.
That's serious. That's a control thing. Cause I totally identify with you. You know what? Something that just came through. I was just talking about this because one of our good friends, Brian, he's moving and, he's like, yeah, moving's a so stressful thing. I'm like, you know what? It hasn't been stressful for me the last couple times I moved. You know why? Because I let go of all control. I hired TaskRabbit person. I hired what's the other one? There's some other app that's for moving. I literally hired out the whole thing because anytime I try to be involved in that process, guess what happens? I get stressed out and I'm trying to control, and then it's not serving me. Like it's not even my highest and best use. I'm just, I'm just like in misery the whole time. And the truth is, it doesn't matter. If it gets put in what box, it doesn't matter. I'm just happy that it's all done. And then guess what? It's all going to be unpacked anyway. So
Exactly.
it's like those things, it's like we just get to identify. And this is something I'm also super passionate about. So when you said structure, I was like, yeah, girl, let's jam out about that because I'm all for it because I know the freedom that it creates and I know the joy, like the freaking joy that it creates. And
Yes.
so having these structures, having these systems, SOPs, scheduling, right? That works for you. This is all in support of you being your highest and best,
Yes.
being in your highest and best use.
Yes.
That's what it's about. So if that doesn't sound good to you, then okay, fine. Don't get structured systems. But don't you want to be like feeling your best all the time and like in your highest and best use, in your zog, your zone of genius, instead of be doing these things that are just a poor use of your time, that stress you out anyway, that dilute your power, that dilute your energy. Yes. All for it. So good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm a huge structural capacity fan. And, you know, there's just these little things that people don't realize that it's the structures in their lives. Like I said, the structure you have right now worked for you up until
Till this
now.
point. Mm-hmm.
But if you think you're going to take that same structure and that it's going to take you to where you want to go next, you'd be wrong. You
Mm-hmm.
have to think like, if I'm already there, what kind of structures would I have right now? Like,
Yep.
what does the future version of me set as structure now to be able to get there, right? Because
That's
if
a
you
great
have,
question, you guys. You should write that down. What does the
yeah,
future version of me have in place for structure? Have like all of everything, the money capacity, everything we went through, asking that question. What's that future version of me, that version of me that I want to be? What
yeah,
does that look like? What does that feel like?
a hundred
Such a
percent.
great question.
Yeah. I have an event that I do at the beginning of every year for planning your year. And that's the question. We go through all the capacities and we ask that very question
Yes.
and we set the whole year up based on those questions. So yeah, it's so important. And you know, yeah, I used
That's
to
how
have
you
this,
quantum leap. That's how you quantum
yes,
leap. You
you
literally
have to,
set. Mm-hmm.
yeah. No, 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 I agree with you. We're both saying the same.
Yeah,
We're both
we're like
agreeing.
getting all heat. You're like, yeah, yeah, go, go. So good. Okay, so what's the sixth one? What's the last? What's the final one?
Oh, you're gonna love the sixth one. The sixth one is boundary capacity.
Oh yes, you knew it. I love it. Yes.
It's a popular topic, and whenever I talk about it, everybody's chattering on my Instagram account about it. Boundaries is so interesting, and I feel like this is where we leak the most energy and power. And I think structures and boundaries, one thing I always say is that these capacities are very much interwoven like a
Hmm.
fabric, because if you get better boundaries, your structures get better, right? If
Yes.
you get better structures, you have to have better boundaries to uphold those structures, right?
Yes.
So with boundaries, the way I define boundary capacity is it's not just, a lot of people tend to think of boundaries as a wall. And so if you're like a person that doesn't want to be harsh or mean to people, you might shy away from boundaries because they feel mean, right? But here's how I like to think about boundaries. Boundaries are specific requests that we make to the universe about what we are and are not available for.
Mm.
So if we want something and we don't have the appropriate boundaries to welcome it in, if we're trying to manifest it, the universe is very confused about what you're asking for, because if I'm the universe, I'm like, you're telling me you want, you know, 10 new clients, but you don't have the boundaries you need to be able to handle 10 new clients. So I'm not going to send you 10 new clients until you put those boundaries in, or you're going to end up on the floor.
Yes,
Right?
and it's also like think about personal relationships. Like in a like say you really want to be treated a certain way or you want something this dream relationship, right? But you're currently allowing yourself to be treated, you
Yes.
know what I mean? Like what are you tolerating? Right? Like question, what are you tolerating? What are your minimum standards right now?
Yeah, and your boundaries will literally communicate that to people.
Yeah.
And then if you're like, why are they treating me this way? Well, take a look at your boundaries and see how
Yes.
you are telling them to treat you that way. I have
Yes.
a in my group program, I have an audio that they all have to listen to before they come into our Facebook group and start interacting with each other. And
Uh-huh.
it's called The Boundaries and the Expectations of the Space. And it's the best thing ever because it anybody who gets triggered by that audio leaves the program. And it's the best thing because
Yeah.
then we only have people who are happy to honor boundaries in the group,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, there's two ways that you're always communicating boundaries. It's number one, either you're communicating them or not communicating them like verbally. And two, it's what you're accepting and what you're tolerating because that's also communicating it.
100%.
Yeah.
You're so right about that. And the last thing I want to say about boundaries that we forget about boundaries is we tend to think of boundaries as, boundaries that we set with other people, but we have to set boundaries with ourselves too.
Yes.
So the story that I told you about that client who's like, I'm only going to allow myself to wallow for one day, that's a self boundary,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I used to have this thing where I was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and my mind would start spinning and I would start going into like a panic attack. And I don't know why, but for some reason at 4 o'clock in the morning, you start thinking like, where's my social security card? And oh my God, I forgot to pay this bill. And it's like, why are you doing this, brain? But I actually read a study that there's a part of our brains that protects us from overly negative thoughts is shut off when we're at that time of the night, and so we're more likely to get negative in our thinking because it's not that part that protects us is not activated in our brain. But just telling yourself, I had to start practicing when I would start spiraling I call it doom spiraling at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd be like, stop it, your brain thing is turned off. This is not real. Go back to sleep. And it took me like 2 weeks of just saying that to myself until I finally started to be able to just go back
Yeah.
to sleep and be like, stop this nonsense. You don't have time for this. You have too many good things to do. So that's boundary capacity. And I find that a lot of people leak the most power and energy in this area because I think everybody listening here, all my clients, we're very strong, right? We can handle a lot. And when we do that, we think that we can handle all the little tiny boundary violations people do. But the thing is, you're not just handling one little boundary violation. It starts to become like death by paper cut because there's so many paper cuts.
Mm,
It's draining, all those tiny little leaks are draining
mhm,
all of your energy. So if you
mhm.
ever have burnout, um, a lot of people try to like quit their businesses or sell their businesses or quit their jobs because of burnout. All you're going to do is if you don't have good boundaries, you're just going
Yeah,
to carry the same
exactly.
thing into the new
Mhm.
business or the new job.
100%. Same thing, new guys, same thing, new location. Like people will move because it's like,
Yes.
but people will do that. Like they'll actually move, and then the same thing happens in the new place because yes, everything starts. It's inwardly created, and it's everything is manifested outwardly. So it's inside. It starts from the inside out, always. And I love what you said about like the fact that I'm just going to underline this like 5 times is it's your boundary. They're all it's your boundary. So when someone crosses it, it ain't their fault.
Yeah.
Okay. It's your responsibility to uphold your boundary. So remember, if you're tolerating, if you're accepting it, like for example, if you have a boundary of, let's say in your relationship, of no yelling, like there's no cursing and no yelling. That's not something I'm not available for that. It's my boundary. But then you are in a situation where the person is yelling at you and you're continuing to stand there or maybe even engage. That's you've crossed your own boundary. That's you crossing your own boundary. So in that moment, you say, hey, this is against my boundary. I'm not available for this. And you walk away. That's it. It's literally that simple because when you are standing there tolerating something, you are in violation of your own boundary, not them, not the other person, not the thing, not whatever the external situation is that's happening. You are in violation of your own boundary.
No,
We
it's
get
so
to be
true.
responsible. We're the ones in power here.
Yes, you're the
Yeah.
upholder. Who else is going to uphold the
Yeah.
boundary?
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. These are so good. Okay, I wrote them all down. I hope all of y'all did. Money, visibility, purpose, embodiment, structural, and boundaries. Okay, all ways that you get to expand your capacity as the amazing, powerful woman that you are, who gets to continue to grow, create massive wealth and success and freedom in your life. These are very, very important areas that you get to look at, and you get to ask these questions, that Lisa shared, and hopefully you wrote those down, because this is where you get to go. You get to look at these areas, you get to shine light on the darkness so you can transform it. Love it. Okay, awesome, Lisa. Thanks so much for going into all of that. That was so fun. And I do have one final thing. This is a more of a female on fire themed question that I have for you, that I ask every female on fire who comes in on the series, which is, what is something, Lisa, about yourself that you maybe used to hide, dim, mute, maybe even shame or judge about yourself, that you have since reactivated and reignited on your journey to becoming the unstoppable female on fire that you are today?
Mhm. For me, my whole life, it's been my truth telling and my ability to see things that a lot of people don't see. I
Mm,
used to shrink it a little bit because it would upset a lot of people. And in change, I would attract clients that didn't want to hear the truth. And so it was really hard because you're in a session and you're like, I know what's happening, but you're too delicate to hear it.
yeah.
And when I started just saying it all in my social media posts and my blog posts, my email, everything totally changed and
Wow.
totally changed my clients. I'm very direct. I have neurodivergent. I have ADD, ADHD. So I don't have a lot of subtext when I talk. Like if I say like, hey, don't send me that, literally it just means, hey, don't send me that. It doesn't mean, hey, don't send me that, I hate you, or any of that stuff. And so I had to just own the fact that I'm a direct person.
Yeah.
I'm really good at seeing the truth. And if you don't like that, you probably shouldn't be in my sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. It's that part of that's the visibility piece, right? It's that
Yeah.
visibility piece, like owning that part of you. And it's ends up being, that's actually one of your superpowers
Oh,
as the
yes.
coach that you are. It's like your
It
greatest
is.
superpower.
It's my greatest superpower. I mean, yeah, I've pointed things out to people who told me nobody had ever seen that their entire lives, and they had gone
Mm,
to many coaches and therapists, and that's my gift. And I'm not,
mm.
and we tend to think like, oh, it's too braggy to say that. No, I'm really good at that.
It's about, no, it's not even about, it's about like, yeah, own it. Like
Yeah.
own it all, own it. Yes. I
Hmm.
love it. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you reactivated that gift. I
Yeah.
love it. That's so
Yeah.
powerful. And I hope that inspired those of you ladies, any of you who are holding back your truth, that you get to fully own your truth. So let that inspire and empower you into that for yourself. All right, Lisa, it's been such a pleasure and so much fun jamming out with you on this today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I'll make sure to share all the things, the ways that people can find you, your website, your Instagram, so that they can go and stalk you after the show.
Yeah, I do a lot of truth telling on Instagram.
Yeah, let's get it's exciting. Go follow her, go check her out. And by the way, guys, anything that resonated with you on this episode, screenshot, tag us so we can repost on our stories. I love to see what really clicks for you, what really lands for you. So be sure and do that. Love hearing from you in that way. So thank you so much, Lisa, for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.